Bismillah, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. This is a very special episode of The Dean Show. We're here in Texas, that's right, y'all, with a live studio audience, and we're going to get everybody involved. You can get involved from your house, you can get involved with your family, sit around the TV and enjoy this week's show, because we have a special guest, David Gullion, who comes from a background of Baptist missionaries, 50 years in the making. He accepted Islam, and he's here to tell us his story on The Dean Show. We'll be right back.
This is The Dean Show. 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 This is The Dean Show.
Mr. David
Gullion.
Gullion, I'm going to start off with peace, as we do as Muslims.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Peace be with you. How are you, sir?
Fine, alhamdulillah.
Now, I'm very honored to have you on our show.
Thank you.
Now, we get a lot of special guests like yourself, people, you know, we interview from all walks of life. You know, you seem like someone, you know, when you look at you, you know, somebody who's just an American, and people are looking like, man, is this the FBI or something? Or, you know, the chemistry teacher, you just, you know, somebody from the outside is looking in, it's like, man, this is not a Muslim, you know, because they think Muslim, you know, Arab, Pakistani. What happened here?
Basically, when I came to the point that I investigated Islam, I felt that based on what I knew, I was forced or compelled to become Muslim.
By the sword?
No, simply forced to become Muslim because it was the correct religion or the right belief.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your history. You heard me mention in the beginning that 50 years of Baptist missionaries?
Yes, my parents, they're now deceased. They were Baptist missionaries in the Philippines for 50 years. My father was a soldier in the U.S. Army in World War II. And following the Second World War, he went back. Even as a young person, I came to realize that there was a difference between the Jesus of faith and what must have been the person of history. And it wasn't until I began investigating Islam that I began to make sense of who Jesus was. And doing this, investigating, say, using the Bible, I eventually became Muslim.
Yes. What year was this at?
This was in March of 96.
96.
Right, and what happened was Dr. Alam invited me to talk to him in the Abu Bakr Mosque here in Houston, and I went, and I really wasn't that interested. In fact, the only question I asked during the whole time that he was there, that I was talking to him or that I was visiting with him, was I asked him, says, is Prophet Muhammad the prophet as you would find in, you know, the Bible? And he said, yes. Well, in my opinion, I didn't think that he was, but I was going to investigate, because now I had all that I needed to make an investigation. So I simply went home, got out my Old Testament, ran down the different proofs listed in the Old Testament as to what defines a prophet as they are defined in the Old Testament. Then I went out to make an investigation of Prophet Muhammad, and to my great surprise, he fit the criteria. Then I was interested. I had my attention. I got 2 translations of the Quran, and over a 2-week period, I read both of them. I read one translation and the other one, and I felt a strong compulsion, to become a Muslim, but I did not want to become a Muslim. I said to myself, if I can find just one good reason not to become a Muslim, I will not become a Muslim. And so I spent 3 months trying to find some good reason not to become a Muslim, based on but I felt that I had to become a Muslim, and so that's why I'm a Muslim.
You get sometimes people reacting in a way like when you tell them you're Muslim, what kind of responses do you get? You say, come on, you're kidding me.
No, quite often they might think that it's unusual.
They think it's unusual?
Yeah, to be a Muslim.
Yeah.
I just simply tell them that essentially what Islam teaches and what all the prophets taught was make God central to your life, and then you either show or you prove it by taking care of your fellow human being. And if you say, for instance, check out the Gospels and the New Testament, you'll see that essentially in wherever your different portions that you look, Jesus told people to love God, fear God, obey God. Add them all together, they essentially add up to making God central to your life. And then you are to show or prove that this is so by taking care of your fellow creature. And Islam does the same thing. If you go to the mosque, listen to the imam and see if essentially what the message that he gives, Friday after Friday is make God central to your life and take care of your fellow creature.
Why do you think this is? Usually when we explain Islam, without even saying Islam, when we explain the tenets of Islam, that Islam calls you to worship none but the Creator, to set up no partners with Him. Only, like you said, make that the central key point in all your worship. Only God. And to believe in all the messengers of God, and the day of judgment, accountability, and to establish a good character in your life, to do good. People are like, they can relate to this, but as soon as you put Islam in front of it, there's a problem. Why do you think this is?
It's simply because they would associate the word Islam with something being different or foreign. But in effect, the word simply ultimately means submission to God, which is what Christianity and, say, Judaism teach, is that you should submit to God.
Tell us, what would you do? How would your response be? We've seen some in the media, you're coming out of a mosque or a masjid or an event, and, a family gathering, and then outside of the mosque, you had someone holding a sign saying, go back home. How would you respond to this?
If I go back home, I go to Houston, because Houston's my home. I was born here in Texas, so if I go back home, that's where I go back home.
Yeah.
And submission to God is a universal message, so wherever a person lives or a creature lives, that's their home.
Yeah.
And in other words, submission to God is something that should be done regardless of where a person is.
How's your...